Okay, we'll call to order the October 30th, 2017 meeting of the Development Review Board. This is October 30th, 2017. It's 7:05 p.m. Let's see. Every single meeting I give opening remarks that are the same. I apologize if you're hearing these over again. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrative decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. That means we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that because we're on the record, this is your opportunity, and perhaps your only opportunity, to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, this court will not take or consider additional testimony at its hearing. We'll look at the evidence from our hearings, the regulations or applicable law, and determine if the evidence supports the findings and decision of this board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision to the environmental court, so I strongly encourage you all to speak up at the hearing. Because we're on the record, everybody here has to give sworn testimony. So if you think there's even the slightest modicum of a chance that you might speak at this hearing, I'd ask that you raise your right hand and I'm going to swear you in. Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? I think I did. Okay. I think that was everybody. Is that everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. If you change your mind, you have to let me know, because if you're not sworn, it's not considered on the record. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed, which is 4 votes out of 7. We have 7 people. We have 6 people. But this is more people than we've had for a while. We've been running a little bit low because we're trying to find more people to fill out our board. Because we can only give you 6 possible votes, we offer people here the chance to ask for a continuance after having some deliberation if it looks like you're not going to get 4 votes out of the 6 people that are on this board. If you want to move forward and kind of take the temperature of the Development Review Board, that's fine. And then if it looks like perhaps you have 3 of the 6, we can try to figure out a way to get another person to vote on that, so you get the benefit of the full board's 7 votes, so you can get your 4. Because the way it works is you have to get 4 votes, whether there's 5 of us or 6 of us or 7 of us. After taking testimony, we will close our public hearing and may vote on your application. We'll issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for an appeal to the environmental court. The town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town has no special status before this board. Documents provided to us by the town planning department, town attorney, or any other town representative are considered in exactly the same way as information from an applicant or an interested party. So, approve the minutes from September 18th, 2017.
So moved. Second, please.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
I wasn't here, so I assume.
We'll let it go.
You can abstain. You can officially abstain, that's
I'll
fine.
abstain, yeah.
All in favor? Any against?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Me and Todd.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Okay, so 402, rare 402 vote for the minutes. Okay. Mr. Bannon, has our meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Disclosure of conflicts of interest. This is not really a conflict, but I suppose I'll note that Mr. Remy-Powers owns a building which is adjacent to my home, but is not the subject of this application. Anybody else?
I do?
You do. I live at 92 Green Street.
Oh, okay.
And you're building on School Street that butts mine, and if this was an application relating to that, I would recuse myself, but since it's not, I I'm just noting this for a clean record. No other conflicts, no other ex parte communications. Okay, that's good. So our first case then is application 2017-145, William Keefe. So Mr. Keefe, have you ever done this before?
I've been at a meeting before, but not as this kind of participant.
Well, let me give you the lay of the land. If you could sit at that table, those microphones are going to allow us to broadcast whatever you're about to say to us to the people watching on community television. And we're just going to ask you to tell us about your project.
Okay.
So make yourself comfortable.
The first thing I wanted to say is that I don't hear very well, so I'm having a difficult time.
I'm sorry, I mumble, but
Yeah.
thank you for telling us, and I will try to be clear. Is this a little better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So,
So, Mr. Keefe, tell us about your project, please.
In my case, it's not a project. I run a business, and I've run a business for between 15 and 20 years at 376 Western Avenue on a property that I guess you'd call it mixed use. It's approved for some commercial use. And I've been using that property for my landscape business. I, at one point, came to the planning board to ask for approval for a business sign, which is in front of my property.
That's alongside now. the green
Yes.
one. Yep.
Now, coming to the planning board to get a sign approved means I'm coming in the belief that my property was, my use of the property was appropriate. It has since come to my attention from Mr. Bannon that my property is not allowed for, and I'm not sure, I don't say exactly, you can't have it come and go from the property to run your business? Or I would ask for an explanation as to what my use of the property for business doesn't adhere to that.
James Street. Let me offer a little brief explanation for the cause of the violation. So you were issued a sign permit in the past, and at that time you didn't apply for having an outdoor contracting or yard services. I assumed at the time that that was issued that you were running a home occupation. Should I talk a lot louder?
No,
Oh, okay.
just what you just said is news to me. I was supposed to.
Hold on, Mr. Keefe.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I just want to let him say his
Yes,
piece,
okay.
and we will let you respond.
Okay, yeah.
It's easier to understand the situation if he goes through
So
it.
I guess I didn't really hear what you said.
Let me start again. So I issued a violation, and I did so upon a complaint from a neighboring property owner. The complaint was that you were operating an outdoor landscaping firm from your property in a residential district. And that type of business is not allowed in residential districts. In the past, you received a sign permit, and at that time, you didn't apply to have a business out of doors. And it had been my assumption when I issued that permit that you were operating home occupation. And that's something where you have a small business and you would be operating an office or something along those effects at your home, but doing work off-site. So the particular objection is having unscreened parking of lawn care, business, trucks, and so forth, having large stockpiles of chips out of doors that are unscreened, and operating machinery on site that isn't in the character of a neighborhood. And
What
today,
kind of machinery, do you know? Wood chipper?
yeah, barrel.
The trailer type?
Mr. Keefe would have to explain that.
You got a wood chipper there?
I own a chipper, yes,
The trailer type?
yes.
It's a mulch grinder, that's the problem.
I also own,
I will take public comment, and when I do, I'll ask you to come to the microphone, but let me interrogate Mr. Keefe a little bit. Yeah.
I also own a machine called a tub grinder, which turns wood chips and leaves into mulch.
Okay. And those are on the property?
Yes. May I comment on Mr. Vander's?
Yes, of course.
Well, when I applied for a sign for a landscape business, I don't think a landscape business is a in-house business. It's an obvious, you go out and landscape. And that's, I was never asked to apply for a permit to go. I just assumed, and no one ever told me otherwise, that I was okay to continue doing business. If I had at that time to apply for a variance, I would have done so.
But that's okay, we're not here to play Monday morning quarterback. We're here to figure out what you have and whether it conforms to the stuff that's allowed on the property in the residential district, that's all. And if there's a way to mitigate that.
Yes.
So, can you tell me this? You've got your tug grinder and you've got your wood chipper.
Yes.
Are those about the same size?
Yes.
Are they each one-axle devices that are towed?
The tub grinder never moves.
Okay.
It just sits in the lower part of my yard. The chipper goes out twice a week and chips brush.
Okay. There was an issue that was alleged that there was some erosion onto the neighboring property. Do you know anything about that?
I certainly do.
Can you tell me about that?
Yes. That was Mr. Gordon Bristol's company, CBI, that alleged that I eroded onto their, I caused erosion on their property.
This is the west side?
I'm sorry?
This is the west side of your house?
Yes. I absolutely did not cause any erosion on their property. Their property is above my property. I also did not do a formal complaint to the town when they clear cut and caused erosion on my property, which resulted in contamination of my mulch pile. Instead, steps were taken to alleviate the erosion from their property. But I did have a conversation with Steve Zaluzny where I said, going forward, there cannot be, and there never has been, water, surface water, leaving your property that then went through my property and then went down the bank towards the Whetstone Brook. I didn't take pictures, but I did bring my crew out there to document the damage that was done. His response to me was, surface water has always left this property and it will be allowed to do so. And I said, you will have a problem with me going forward because surface water should not leave your property. It never has left your property. You have put up erosion fence for the neighbors bordering William Street where there is no erosion, and erosion occurred onto my property, which has since stopped, by the way, because vegetation has grown up. But going forward with construction, if they were to go forward with construction, a big concern of mine would be the particular back corner of that property that abuts mine is essentially a small wetland. And water was contained there, went into the ground, went under my property, and ends up in the Whetstone Brook. In my particular area, I've extended my driveway, and water goes into my back area, and I have built a containment system so that no water leaves that site. It's allowed to collect and percolate and go down to the Whetstone Brook. So I think it's very important that their property, which did the same, continue to do the same. I just want to say the reason why I know this so well is because I had a contract with ZBI Properties to help clear their lot. I also had a contract with them to use a 100-foot by 100-foot area. And that particular area is the area that we're talking about. And I soon discovered that it was a wetland, literally, and it wasn't usable. So.
We don't need to get this
No,
deep.
well, the
into
point
it.
is, I know
Yeah,
I know what the water does in that area very well.
just let me change subjects a little bit. How many people are generally working at the property on Western Ave?
I have recently,
And I don't mean like meet in the morning and go to other places, I mean working there during the day.
one at most.
What is the time that things get started in the morning and when they cease in the evening?
It's generally 7:30 to 4:30.
And how noisy is what type of noise is the activity in the Western Avenue property creating during those hours?
I don't believe it creates any noise problem for my neighbors. It was more of a disturbance for my tenants if we blocked their access in and out, which was a rule that we didn't do. But I do not believe I bothered neighbors. Now, in my notes, it showed that does it show that I've considerably downsized my business?
No, just let me ask you a quick
Sure.
question. You've got this mulch producing machine, and you've got and I assume that runs on site.
I have a question to ask someone about that, but yes.
What time do you generally do that?
It would be Saturdays, 10 to 4,
10 to 4?
yes. Maybe 20 hours a year.
Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. What did you want to say?
It's just that I noted that I've downsized my company from approximately 8 employees and 6 trucks to, I now have 2 employees. I basically gave away 80% of my business.
What is the stuff that is stored outdoors?
There is a mulch pile, and there are
How big?
100 yards.
Can you give me like a height?
Yeah, well, 10 feet high, 40 feet by 30 feet. Now, if you did those measurements, then my math might be way off, but,
I only want a ballpark.
yeah.
Okay. And where is the mulch on the property?
It's actually located on the back of my neighbor's property, who has given me the okay to put that mulch there.
Is this the Zelezny Bristol property?
No, it's owned by Matt Vos.
Okay. And is this just a pile in a grassy area? Is it screened somehow? Is it
No, it's not
behind trees?
screened. So we take the wood chips that we get, and we mix in with those wood chips all the leaves that we collect, all the prunings that we collect, and we turn it for a year, and then we make mulch. I was actually this year an approved Wyndham Solid Waste Management distributor for their mulch. So their mulch, I have maybe 10 yards at a time on the property, and they toured my site, really liked what I was doing, approved me as a distributor, and I'm trying to do the same sort of thing that they're doing, which is instead of not using all the organic material that I generate, I'm trying to turn it back into a product.
How loud is that grinder? I mean, is it like an idling truck motor? Is it?
No, it might, you know, the neighbor who's closest to the tub grinder is here, and I would appreciate her feedback in if that has been a problem for her.
I'm gonna ask her
Yes,
too.
yeah.
Generally, the way
You wear
we
ear
do this-
protection when you use it.
Oh, I understand. Generally, the way we work here is I ask you a bunch of
Yeah.
questions, and then I'll open it up to the public, and I'm sure she'll have comments.
So my answer to that question is, it's difficult because I use heavy equipment all the time. I wear ear protection all the time. But how someone else is affected, like a neighbor, by that sound, I can't say. And I'm surprised that that's a question being asked of me, because if I'm aware of that kind of a question or problem, I'll do whatever a neighbor would request to not have it be an issue.
Is there outdoor lighting that's on, that's involved in all this?
That has nothing to do with my business, well, per se, it has to do with tenants. I put a lot of money into my building, and part of that is nighttime lighting, so my tenants can see coming in and out of the building.
Are these the movement lights?
No, I don't think there's motion lights now. There might be, but there's definitely lights that come on during the evening.
Are they on all night?
Yes.
Where are they?
They're attached to the first garage, which is attached to the house, which is within 8 feet of the street.
Are they directed downward? They're up on the wall?
They're directed downward. And part of the reason for that, as we know, there's been some problems in this town. And amongst them is I am frequently robbed. And I'm also interested in the safety of my tenants. Not also, but, you know, I mean, that's primarily how lighting started there, so that they can get out of their cars and see.
Mhm. Does the grinder give off any fumes, diesel, etc.?
It's a diesel engine. I wouldn't, not excessive.
Is it a engine where you'd be able to feel the vibration the next property over?
The point of the machine is to have it not vibrate at all. I had problems when I bought the machine. Vibration is very bad, so it's not supposed to vibrate.
Do you have any waste that you store on the property?
But,
Waste?
like, such as,
Well, I don't know.
well, as part of my business, I take pallets, and I have a burn pile for the pallets. I recently had to take mattresses from behind a mattress store.
How much of the pallets, how many of the pallets are you storing?
There might be a dozen right now.
That's sort of the maximum?
They're in a nice pile.
Yeah, okay. And you had some mattresses? Yeah.
We didn't get provided a site plan,
Okay.
and I'm really having trouble figuring out, I mean, you provided this, it's not labeled, I don't know which property is yours, and which property is which.
They're also very,
And I don't know where the activity is taking place in relationship to the house. I drove by there today,
Mhm.
and I saw your sign and your driveway, and it looks like you go down
Yes.
to an area where there seemed to be stuff piled and stored. But I really, I don't think I can make a decision without having a site plan and knowing where activity is taking place and how far it is from the neighbors, and where Mr. Voss's property is and where you're storing this mulch.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a clue.
Well, let me ask some questions to try to ferret that out. And if we don't know enough, we can figure something out to learn more. But let me just ask you some more questions, okay,
Please.
Mr. Keefe? So besides the pallets, and you had some mattresses there, but that was temporary,
Yeah.
is there any other waste? Stuff that eventually goes to the dump, but is piled on the property for a period of time, is how I understand it.
Right now, no, that I know of.
Okay. How often are you burning?
I would say once a year.
And how significant of a burn is that?
Takes a few hours, not a big
Is
bonfire.
it brush?
No brush,
What is it?
just the pallets, and last time it was some wooden fence, unpainted wooden fence.
Are there any flammables or explosives that are stored there?
Gasoline and diesel fuel.
How much?
At any time, probably 10 to 15 gallons of gas and 5 gallons of diesel.
How do you store them?
In the best safety cans that we have.
Are they outside or inside?
Well, they're supposed to be in the garage, not in the part of the building that I use that's beneath the tenants.
Do you ever dump?
Gasoline?
Yeah,
No.
I have to ask. How much of the property is residential?
There's 3 apartments in the building, and I actually claim that I use 50% of the property for business. Because I take the entire basement and I take the 2 garages in the backyard.
Do you think it's about 50/50 square footage?
That's
Is that
what I
you're saying?
asked my accountant to declare on taxes.
Well, yeah, but I just want to know, is that about right, square footage wise?
Yes,
Do you live at that residence, sir?
I don't anymore. I did for the first 10 years. But I'm there 6 days a week.
What does it look like from the adjacent properties?
Not as good as I would like it to look. I probably have been the leader in the whole neighborhood in improving the property. I've been working on the property for 15 years. And I've done a lot of work in the yard, in the front of the house, the foundation of the house, et cetera, et cetera. I'm now currently stalled in a renovation of the last barn. And that is fairly unattractive because it's a falling down barn that's shored up, but I don't have the finances yet to rebuild. But compared to my neighbors, I believe I'm doing pretty well.
When do cars come and go? Besides your tenants, but just associated with the business?
Well, it would be 7:30 to 4:30.
You sort of meet there and then go to the various jobs?
Right now, I have 2 employees,
Okay.
and that's how I want to keep it. So we don't have a big influx and outflow.
So you have a couple cars in the morning plus you, and then they'll head out and then maybe meet up at the end of the
And I
day?
frequently don't, or they frequently don't even have to go there. We can go directly to the first job.
Okay. And there's 3 tenant parking spaces?
Tenants, if depending on how many they need. If they need 2 per apartment, or up to 6. But currently, there's only 2 cars for the 3 apartments.
Where do they park?
And there's a parking lot for about 10, 12 cars.
Is it in front of the building or
Behind.
beside it? Behind it? So who can see that from the adjacent properties?
I've been paying attention to that, driving down Western Avenue from the west. I wanted to see what you can see, and I was surprised you could see very little, but now that vegetation is totally going, you can see a little bit more from Western Avenue of the top of the chipper or the top of a truck. That's about it.
So for outdoor storage, you got the mulch pile, you've got the chipper, you've got the grinder. Are there other things out there that are not enclosed?
Yeah, yes, I would have, I own 6 trucks. There's
Like pickup trucks or bigger trucks?
2 dump trucks, 2 Rangers, 2 half tons. And another, so I own 6 or 7, one of them's mine, but I have 6 company trucks. And that's the part that I'm cutting back from. I don't want that much trucks.
Do those live at this property?
Yes.
And are those visible?
Yes, but from Western Avenue, barely.
What about from the adjacent properties though?
Yes.
Are the lights on the site shielded?
Are the lights shielded?
Yeah, I know, like a little shade over it.
They're a dome that point down. We started with motion lights, so you could, when someone parked their car in the back, it would immediately be lit. And the problem with motion lights is the quality of them isn't very good, so I can't rely on them. So now I have just better lighting that's hopefully stays on.
Is it likely that you're going to reduce the number of vehicles since you have less employees, or is that going to stay?
Yes. If I could go back to this point about the lighting has nothing to do with business. The lighting is for tenants.
That's fine.
Tenant,
But tell me about the vehicles. Do you think you're going to stick with the 6 or 7?
no. It's a decision as to which ones go. My vehicles are my weak link in my company. I have a lot of older vehicles, and I haven't made the decision, and I thought part of the decision might be made here, but to which trucks to eliminate.
Okay. Do any of them have more than 2 axles?
Well, like,
Tandems.
no, I don't think so.
That's all my questions. Other members of the board? Members of the public? So I can tell I think you want to speak.
I do.
Can you just come up to the microphone and say who you are and where you live?
My name is
not
Charlotte Evans.
It's not a microphone that amplifies your voice here, but it's so that the people on TV can watch this.
Okay. I have a property that abuts the Zaluzny property all the way along, and my property abuts Mr. Keefe's. It comes down into a triangle, and then my property goes back up and goes down the hill.
So yours is starts 2 over to the west?
I'm bad on direction.
Is the Zalesny
It's,
Bristol property between yours and his, and then they come together?
no, the Zaluzny property is,
Oh, okay.
I think.
my side yard is down the hill from that.
Yeah,
So then it goes to Zaluzny, his property, and I'm out back.
okay.
Okay.
That's her.
Okay, fire away.
So, his mulch grinder, I don't remember if it had to have been last year or the year before, when he was operating it, it threw a foot-long knife, 30 feet, over my property into my neighbor's property. I was outside, my dogs were outside, I had company over. When my neighbor went over and said, you know, this just went 6 feet into the ground on my property, he said it's a new machine, he's not quite sure what he's doing. So he's purchasing unsafe equipment and not knowing how to operate it. I have concerns when I hear it start, I won't let anybody in my backyard.
Can you tell me, he said that he operates it for about 20 hours a year, is that, do you disagree with that?
No, that's probably close. He had mulch right up to this summer with no buffer between my property and his, and it was smoldering. I have let as much of the property grow high so I don't see his property. I like the
When you say
buffer.
smoldering, you mean there's smoke coming off?
Yes.
And another question, do you disagree with what he said about the size of it, or does that sound accurate?
I have a picture of it, it's fairly large. I mean, he can stand on the tub and he's a good couple feet off the ground.
Do you think 10 feet is not tall enough? Mayor, do you think?
But I think he was talking about the mulch pile, not the grinder.
Yeah, I'm asking about the mulch pile.
Okay, the mulch pile, yeah, it was probably 10 feet tall.
Okay,
So it's smoldering as it's next to my trees. He had a truck that was improperly parked. It had a weak transmission. It slid out of gear and went down his property and then went down my embankment. It gouged a couple trees going down. I texted him to let it know it happened, and he had probably 4 guys on my property trying to get it out close to midnight, and I said it's not safe. And they were instructed to get it out at no cost of what I had asked, to the point that I had to call the cops and ask that it then be done during the day. I tried to speak with him nicely and let him know I felt very unsafe that those people were doing that. And he disregarded it. He's cut down my trees because he thought it was his property to begin with and didn't check. And I've lost a barrier between my property and his. At one point, he thought the embankment that abuts his property was town property and was throwing organic waste over. Till I realized it was mine, and he had to stop.
can I back up for 1 second and ask about the vehicles?
Yep.
You said that, I understand one of them coming loose and going onto your property, but
Right.
if they're not doing that, if they were, protected in some way from doing that, are they?
They're in eyesight, but mainly because my shrubbery was cut down.
But I mean, if they were screened, they would not be?
Yeah. I have a problem that the mulch is smoldering with no buffer between mine and his property, and the grinder is less than 10 feet. There's less than a 10-foot buffer on each side. Because in that B that he is operating in, I own property on both sides of that B.
Okay.
There's other personal issues of animals and stuff, but it's not
Right, but,
necessarily, right.
I mean, what we're mainly interested in is stuff that's associated with the business that
Right.
is impeding you from enjoying your property. Have you gone over most of that?
Yeah, Yeah, that's pretty much
Like,
what
like for-
happens in the back of my property.
Does the lighting shine onto your property?
No.
Okay. Any smells?
The mulch can be a little smelly at times. The tub grinder operating has never bothered me. It's loud, but it's during the day. I realize he's working.
Right. But there's not noxious diesel fumes
No.
covering your house or anything like that? Okay. Any erosion issues on your property from his?
Well, the Zaluzny property goes down to his property, and his property then filters down off my property,
You mean onto your property?
onto my.
Okay.
It's an embankment, it erodes. I wasn't overly concerned about that, but he was trying to tell me that he was going to do what he needed to do on my property to stop it. And I told him, it's mine and don't dare.
Okay. Does the burn pile bother you?
Depending on where he's burning, I have never noticed him burn though.
Okay.
Just the smoldering mulch, which concerns me.
I totally understand that. And the employees going in and out?
For a while, over the past 1 or 2 summers, they were doing a lot of work down out back,
Mhm.
down the very hill, down the way bottom where my property is. They were nice enough when I said, you know, dude, you're pushing that onto my property, to say, okay, let me talk to Bill, or,
Yeah, I meant more like the traffic.
no.
Okay. Anybody have any more questions for Ms. Evans? Thank you. Mr. Keefe, do you want to respond to any of this?
Yes. I think the first one, the safety one about the knife, when I purchased the machine, the part was moved, and it threw a knife, and that's caused vibration, and so after much discussion with the people who make the machine or whatever, I welded something, so that can't happen. I also installed a cover. I mean, I could have got killed. I mean, that was something that could have gone wrong. That was bad, and it should never ever happen. But it was a part in the machine that I welded. It's not even supposed to be welded. I don't care. It's not being allowed to come loose. So, and I also manufactured my own cover for the machine. And if it ever tried to throw something like that again, it would hit the cover.
Like a grate?
I have a plywood, 3/4 inch plywood over the knives. So if something ever broke off, or if you threw a rock in and the rock wants to be ejected. And third, I angled the tub grinder so that it's not aiming at anyone or anybody. So I mean, that was I had troubles with that poor tub grinder. I spent $30,000 for that tub grinder, and so its problems have since been alleviated, and I try to run that safely. The second one I want to talk about is the truck transmission. It's one reason I don't have employees anymore. Somebody took the truck home to mow a girlfriend's house, brought it back, parked it, and a part in the transfer case came loose and it rolled down the hill over the bank. It's never supposed to be parked there. And finally, it would have never rolled down over the bank because I was trying to complete the berm, and I stopped completing the berm because she wanted me to stop completing the berm. The berm was on my own property, but out of respect to Charlene. Remember we talked about,
It wasn't,
at that point.
it wasn't
Hold on,
on,
hold on.
No,
It
at that
wasn't
point,
on
at
you.
that point.
Wait,
Yeah.
both of you talk to us.
Okay, so at that point, one of the ideas of the berm is it's a safety, it's a 100-foot drop. So there is now a berm on my property to prevent something like that from happening. And again, and now in terms of the guys in at midnight, I think it was 10 p.m. I thought it was 10 p.m. I thought she called me at home. I had no idea they were there. Immediately told them to stop. I believe I apologized to you in the morning for them being there.
Mr. Keefe.
Okay, I'm sorry. I believe I apologized to them.
Yeah.
Because, we're after the good neighbor policy here. We're not, if she had said she wanted it truck out of there, so they came over and started moving the truck and they couldn't get it out, so they stopped and they came back the next day. Again, we're trying to do what she asked us to do, get the truck out of there, and when she said stop, it's time to stop. That's it. I do not believe I cut down any trees on her property.
And just to be clear, whether you did it or not,
Yeah, okay.
No.
But I did go over to her house and where she was looking for property lines and helped her find the property lines, okay? So that we could be in agreement as to, what I should do, where, what not to do, whatever. So I actually don't use the back of that property because out of respect, and I also offered to put up either a fence or put up arborvitae. She does have a dog fence in my yard, and I said, well, they have a dog fence in my yard, and that is still there, but I didn't say anything about that. It's not that important to me. I did have a dog that went over to her house and pee on her deck.
I don't want to get into
Okay, fine.
the pet. I mean, you could be the worst offender or the most innocent angel with the pets, but we don't make decisions related to
So,
that.
the steam, what's coming from the grinder is not smoke, it's steam. Part of the process of,
You mean the mulch pile?
yes,
Yeah.
the mulch, is composting. And it's doing what it's supposed to do. Smells, I think it smells really good, it's making a nice product. There's it's not in danger, it's not smoldering. It's not in danger of smoldering. There's no smoke, there's no danger of fire. It's composting. The location of the grinder, I think, is very considerate of her property. I think it's pretty far away from the property.
Can I ask you a quick question about the vehicles on the grinder?
Sure.
How much trouble would it be to screen those with arborvitae or something like that?
Screen the tub grinder.
And the vehicles? It's hard for me to visualize this because it's hard for me to imagine what she's seeing on your property.
She's seeing the tub grinder operation.
Can she see the trucks as well?
At least 3 of them.
Okay.
Let's say she can see 2 or 3 trucks.
Yeah, okay.
Is it an extreme challenge, or is it reasonably easy to screen those with some shrubbery?
Shrubbery was my first suggestion. I also have posts right now to whoever wants a fence put up, I'll put up a fence. Okay? Whatever neighbors would like me to do. I know I got off to a bad start with her for various reasons, and I am trying to make amends for anything that I may have done to offend any of my neighbors, including offer to buy the piece of the property in the back if necessary.
I told you to write something.
All right.
Right, okay, so, sorry, I did it again.
It's okay,
Yeah.
it's okay.
So, so I'm willing to, to work with neighbors and
Well, it occurs to me, I didn't ask if anybody else here was for this application. Are there any other members of the public? All right.
Can I make a statement on the mulch?
Yes, I always want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak.
I work for
before somebody-
Sosimo Lumber. We own Vermont Mulch. Mulch is highly combustible.
I should mention that I represent Sosimo. I didn't know you worked for Sosimo. I don't think this creates a conflict of interest, but
But mulch is highly combustible.
yeah.
That could have caught on fire when it's steaming. If it is not properly flipped, and I never saw anybody flip it, it is highly combustible.
I understand the deal with mulch. I think at least a couple people here do. I don't want to get into the scientific properties of mulch here.
Yeah.
And I'm not discounting what either of you are saying. I just,
Right.
are there further questions from members of the board? I think this might be appropriate for deliberative session. If someone wants to make a motion.
So moved.
Can I just make
Second.
one more statement about the fence?
Yes.
He said he
Do you
would,
mind holding your motion for 1 second?
Sure,
Eric?
that's fine.
Okay, we're going to hold that motion in suspension to take more public comment.
he
Just
had
wait-
told me last
Hold
year
on,
he would.
just come up to the microphone. Believe it or not, people stop me in the street and they say, why didn't you take that person and put that on the microphone? Because I
Okay.
couldn't hear what was going on.
He had told me last year, once he buys another property, he would be putting up a fence, and I've been waiting.
Okay, thank you. Back to your motion, which has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. What we're doing is we're going to deliberative session to speak about this stuff, and then we're going to come back on the record in about 10 minutes. And we may have a decision, we may not, we don't know. Okay? It's 8:10, we're back on the record. Mr. Keefe, we just met for deliberative session, and we're in one of those situations where we have a technicality, and the things that both you and Ms. Evans discussed are frankly secondary in importance. The primary issue is that you have a permit for a home business, and the law in Brattleboro is that a home business must be conducted by a resident of the dwelling. You don't live there anymore. And this has no reflection on the merits of really anything that's been said here tonight, but we can't overturn Mr. Bannon's violation if we know that you're not a resident of the dwelling, because not being a resident of the dwelling makes it so that you can't get a permit for the home business, period. And I'm sorry, I don't like it when technicalities cause that problem, but it's a fairly black and white situation as far as the law that we have to operate under. So, you can respond if you'd like.
Do I currently have a permit?
I think you did at one time.
No. No, you don't. You have a sign permit, and that's it. There was a home business permit for a previous property owner, but it was not for a landscaping business.
Okay, so I've never had a permit.
Correct. Correct. And, I mean, if you did reside at that address, we would decide on the merits of your arguments about erosion and sound, et cetera, and your neighbors. But we were bound to follow the law on this, and whatever the law says, the fundamental requirements are for getting this permit. If you don't meet those, we can't reverse the zoning administrator. So we had, that's what we discussed in deliberative session, and unfortunately, I think we have to have a motion now to affirm Mr. Bannon's violation.
So moved. Second.
Okay? Any further discussion? If you have any questions, you can ask questions for sure, certainly.
So, moving forward, I have to dissolve the business from that property.
From that property,
Yes.
correct.
Right.
Or you have to be living there if you want to get this type of permit.
Right.
And that will raise all kinds of other questions under the new
understand.
zoning regs,
Right.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
So my questions are, I have two questions. How much time can I please be given to, let's say, to finish this business season and wind it up as a business? And number two, in the future, what can I do from that property?
So, I'm sorry.
So we have to meet and discuss what a reasonable timeline to come into compliance with the zoning code is. And when we meet that, we'll sign a stipulation where you'll agree to cease the operation on that property in that agreed upon time frame.
Right.
And if you don't, then you'll agree that there'll be penalties assessed.
Right.
But we'll give you, we'll mutually discuss it and come up with something that's workable for you.
Okay. And the second part of it? The second part of it?
What can you do in the future?
Sure, yeah, we can discuss that as well.
Okay, because then that would, my vacate, well, what can stay, what has to be vacated?
Sure.
So, all those in favor? Sorry, any further discussion? Yes. Can you just go up to the microphone and say who you are for the people at home? I'm sorry.
So, this is Bob Remy-Powers. I'm not a technically interested party, but as a citizen who teaches moral and political philosophy, which sometimes is philosophy of law, I'm appalled that there's a law like this, that your life can be so determined by you starting a home industry and you can't ever move.
I don't love the law either. However, remember, we don't write the laws. And
Well, yeah.
If
Yeah.
we don't apply them, we just get appealed and then the environmental.
I understand that also,
Yeah.
for sure, but I just felt a need to comment. that-
We appreciate that.
Because cottage industries are, the backbone of Vermont down through
Right.
history, and to think that the law was that way all of this time is really disturbing.
We understand. Thank you for your
Thanks.
comment.
Thank you, which is the case since I lived there and I raised my children when I got married, and my wife doesn't have to live at a landscape business. So it was a really good, logical step to be able to step away from the business and not, I'm still there 6 days a week, but not to have to live there.
I
So
totally.
for future, maybe that law can change.
And for what it's worth, I used to be on the planning commission here, and the planning commission is the group that writes the laws and makes the boundaries for residential. And it may be that area, which is right next to the highway, should be something like mixed use and not residential. And if it was, you wouldn't be running into this issue. And I'm sorry, because it's a black and white legal issue, but I recognize it's going to upset your life, and I take no real pleasure in this, but we have to follow the law. So the motion's on the floor. Is there any further comment? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Kuna abstains, so it's 5-0 to 1. Mr. Keefe, I'm sorry, I know this is not easy, and I recognize that your business has helped a lot of people, including a couple of my clients.
Okay.
But this is just, there's no way around the way that the law is written.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Just said, why should his wife have to leave a landscape company, so it's not good enough for his wife, but it's good enough for me, that owns the property? Yeah, you said that, you showed us in the record.
Wait. Hold on.
Do you want
We're
to
going on to the next
think about it for a
application.
couple of weeks? Then give
It's
me a
okay.
call
So,
and
I
we
mean-
can discuss it and
All
see
right.
what we can do.
The next
terms of what we
application
scheduled, that works
is
for us.
2017-151, Mr. Remy-Powers. Could you come up to the microphone, please?
Oh. This is his father's name.
Tragic.
Can you please tell us about your project?
He drew
Oh.
a plot plan, so
Okay.
you can pass it down.
Do you mind if I write the letter A on this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I'm just marking what Mr. Remy-Powers brought as Exhibit A.
I paid an architect $2,000 to do that.
And this looks like it's a handwritten plan showing the division of the building on Spruce Street. I'm just saying this for the record.
Yep. Good.
So, Mr. Remy-Powers, just let this go through, and then if you could tell us, once it reaches the end, what you're doing.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? Is this in the back of the big house?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just the back side that was shed.
I was thinking it was your little shed out on the side or something.
No, no.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was glad to
Okay.
get your plot plan.
You good? Okay, go ahead.
I own the property at 78 Spruce Street, and the project is a new apartment in the shed area in the back of that property. The footprint of the property wasn't changed at all. This is the original farmhouse for that whole area. It was the first building that was there when it was all dairy farm. And so there's just roughly a 400 square foot small one-bedroom apartment at the very rear of the building. No, the only change that juts out from the building is actually a little balcony off the back, because the land drops off at the back of the building, and so we just have a little balcony that's cantilevered out there, so they can sit out on the balcony and feel like they're not in town. This is forest out there.
So one tenant has a porch and one has a balcony?
Yeah, there's upstairs, downstairs, porch on the side, which are entrances to the other two apartments. And there's a front porch, but there's a side porch, which in fact is how you access the new apartment.
And what rights do the tenants have to use the yard and such, the open space?
Total freedom.
That's more than 400 square feet considerably, right?
Well, just the apartment. is-
No, the open space,
Oh, the open space?
yeah.
That really is a subdividable lot. There's really two lots there. There's a big side lawn, which is now just part of one lot, so it's,
Right, I mean, it looks like a third of an acre or so.
yeah. So,
Is access to the building going to change aside from your adding privacy locks and such?
no, not at all, no. The downstairs tenant, if they're going in from the parking lot, uses that same porch. So the door to the new apartment is right off that same porch. That didn't change at all.
And they'll continue to park on the left side of the driveway?
Yep.
Brian, is this a situation where there's a requirement for the EV? Statutory?
No, it's not. There should just be some provision of an outlet that people can plug into.
Okay, is there an outdoor power outlet? Is there an outdoor power outlet? We've got new requirements with respect to electric vehicle charging based on state statute.
Oh.
You need an outdoor outlet. If you don't have it,
Why our electrician didn't say that?
they probably don't know. It's not code.
Yeah,
It's
okay. Oh, it's not code, so, but we need to do it?
yeah.
And is that a special outlet? Must be.
No, it's not.
It's
It's
just a 120 outlet?
Yeah.
yeah, 20 amp, 120, and it should be GFCI protected as well.
Yeah, sure.
It's the same thing as in your kitchen.
I think there might be on that porch, actually.
If there's one there,
Yeah.
then you'll be following the law. And the other thing is there bike storage space? A barn or something?
No, we're not allowing storage in the barn. That has never worked at any of my buildings.
All right.
But I see the tenants upstairs driving their bikes up into their apartment. Yeah, actually, they put them in the hallway.
You put a bike rack there?
No, I don't, but
Okay.
they just lean their bikes up against the railing.
Are they able to lock it to the
They
porch
can,
railing?
they can if they want, but, yeah, they can do that on the outside porch, or they're welcome to take them up to the interior of the building, and have them in their hallway. And I'm gonna require now that everyone own an electric car, solar electric car.
What's the situation with the fencing? Is there any fencing around the property?
Well, there's fencing between the building, because the land drops off, so like if there were kids there, there's solid fencing, stockade fencing between the house and the barn. So there are actually old stairs that go down to the lower level out in the back. We just wanted to block it off so that there would be no danger to anybody there.
It goes to full length?
Yeah, full length from wall to wall.
That's along the southern,
That's, it's running north-south, and it actually comes right off the corner of this new apartment, which was shed, and just lines right up with the corner, the right-hand front corner of the barn.
Does your roof drainage go onto any impervious surfaces?
No.
Is that a paved driveway?
No, it's gravel,
Where does it drain to?
nowhere.
It just goes in?
Yeah, it's never a problem.
What are you gonna do about snow storage?
Snow?
Yeah, where's the snow gonna go?
Yeah, there's a little lawn area there. The driveway really goes to the barn door, which is on the left side of the barn. And so it makes a little triangle lawn area between that fence and the back porch.
The snow
That's
is
where it all
on.
gets, it actually gets pushed to the left of the parking area, up against the neighbor's fence, but a lot of it gets pushed over onto that lawn area too, off to the right.
In any event, the snow is on a surface that's pervious.
Yeah, completely, yep.
What's the outdoor lighting situation?
I leave because it's great that it costs almost nothing to have lights on, and I notice still there are almost no porch lights on, but in all of my buildings, I want lights on 24 hours a day, so you don't have to depend on timers, and but so as soon as it's dark, and you don't have to depend on motion detectors or any sensors. So I encourage people. I have some very thoughtful tenants who keep turning the lights off to save money, and yet it's on a house meter. And so I just have to encourage them not to be so thoughtful.
Are you using energy conservation things like LED lighting, air-to-air heat exchangers, insulation, or?
Yeah, the LED lighting everywhere. And we're about to probably launch a long-term project of a whole bunch of heat pumps. At this point, that seems to be the best option.
Is the place insulated?
Yeah, up top, certainly. I'm not really clear about what's in the walls.
That's what I say about my house insulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in a house with R100 up top and R35 in the walls, but that's a fairly new house. Insulation pays off. Sethka's gonna do a building for us, actually a big 6-unit building up on Pleasant Street. They're gonna go through the whole thing. That building is always heated well, and now they're gonna, it's gonna be something like 2,000 gallons for this big, I don't know, 8,000 square foot building.
Are your outdoor lights shielded?
No,
All right, you're gonna have to shield them.
we're in, well, yeah, actually, all they are at that building are just the typical, like, carriage lamps.
Am I wrong?
For partially shielded lights like that, if they have a bulb that's less than 20 watts or an LED, then it can be partially shielded. Anything more than 20 watts has to be fully shielded.
Okay.
You mean 20 watts equivalent or 20 watts
He means 20,
actual consumption?
he means not,
20 watts LED bulb, which would be
Which
about
would be like 120 watts
almost like
converted.
200 watts.
Yeah, exactly.
okay.
Yeah, and we're always below that.
Okay. No signs?
No signs.
I think that's all my questions.
Did you hit on the landscape and screening?
Well, I mean, he's gonna have to have some additional landscaping in the front, I think, to conform with that bylaw. I see that, I
What is
have,
that?
what's that? You're gonna need one additional tree and some front yard plantings.
For what?
That's the ordinance. I can see from the
What-
picture,
What would the purpose be?
it's for the streetscape, the general streetscape. The idea is that you require it for every property.
Oh, just to
Brings-
add greenery?
Yeah, just to add greenery. I mean,
Well, that's a
you
good
can
idea.
discuss with Brian, but there's pretty
Yeah.
wide latitude as to exactly what they can be.
Because there was Dutch elm disease and, way back when, but it was a tree that stayed there, and it was only recently that we, last 5 or 10 years, that we cut it down, a giant tree, and that was too bad to see that go, so,
Yeah.
yeah, this is a good idea.
Yeah, whether it's a good idea or not, this is another one where we get a formula that says street trees need
That
to
won't
be.
bankrupt me like this cottage industry thing, that could put somebody right out of business.
That's true, but you'll only need one.
Okay, I can handle that.
And the plantings, what are the plantings that are required for this?
There's a formula, and I can write out what the specific requirement is, and then you can substitute different things like perennials for bushes, or bushes for different sized bushes, or bushes for trees.
It's fairly modest. So I didn't forget to ask that, but I could see from the picture that they weren't there, so I didn't ask about it. Further questions?
No.
Members of the public? Okay, can I have a motion to accept, a motion to grant application 2017-151, provided that there be an outlet available for electric vehicle charging, sufficient method to store bikes, trees and front plantings sufficient to meet the minimum required by the ordinance, snow stored on pervious surfaces, LED lighting, and economically feasible energy-saving approaches, and shielding for any LED lighting above 20 net watts.
So moved.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes 6-0. The application is granted. Thank you.
It's a very nice house.
Okay, the next application is 2017-161. Samuel, is it Daoud?
Very good.
Mr. Daoud, if you would.
I brought a sketch. Might have one for everyone.
Can I write the letter A on it like I did for the last gentleman?
Yeah, I didn't spend 2,000 on an architect.
Oh, he was being sarcastic. It was a handwritten. It was, yours is better.
You're much more talented.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is pretty good.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm marking one of these Exhibit A. It is a, is this a scale drawing?
No, but this should give you an idea, that's the existing.
Is this on the south side of Highland?
It is
Up on the
a,
You guys, with the compass bearings, I'm not clear on.
Where is it, Brian?
boy, this is not a scale drawing, but this is a pretty good drawing of property 103 Highland Street.
Mr. Chair, could I? Member of the public.
What, you don't think it's a good drawing?
No, I haven't no drawing. It's just this, so gentlemen, the directions in Brattleboro with Wantasket will be to your east, West Brattleboro to the west,
Okay.
Price Chopper is
Okay.
down south,
South.
Okay.
and I think Hannaford is up north, right?
That's
That's
right.
pretty good.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. So, Mr. Daoud, this is a lovely drawing. Please tell us about your project.
So I'm from Rhode Island, and we purchased 103. We've been looking to move here for some time, and the idea of getting a rental property is what eventually made it possible. So the 2 units in the house are rented, and what we're proposing to do is renovate the outbuilding for our own use. So it's about 400 square feet as well, but it has a second story. We'll be insulating it. The plan is to put heat pumps in there and use it when we can on weekends and in the summer.
So this is kind of not a tiny house, but also
Right.
not a big house. Can you tell me a little bit about the tenant space? Do they have some outdoor?
Yeah, I think Mr. Bannon might provide you with a site plan. It's a big lot, as you can see. It's a funny shape.
I have your application, but I'm not sure that I have a site plan. Is that a surprise to you, Mr. Bannon?
I thought I had given you one, but.
Well, that's okay, we can pass it over.
So it's this lot, and it is quite large.
I meant more along the lines of a porch or a deck.
Each unit has a porch. The second floor has probably a 15 by 30 foot porch, and then the first floor has a smaller one.
And the open area the tenants will be able to use?
Yeah, so they do make use of it already.
Is it more than 400 square feet?
Yes.
Can they garden there if they want?
Yes,
Grill?
they do grill.
Wonderful. And they can use raised bed planters?
Yeah, the idea there is that there had been a shed at the end of the driveway, so I thought that would help screen the the parking area from the neighbors, and that's also the snow storage area for that part of the driveway, so it'll reinforce the bank of the hill.
And I understand there's going to be some screening between the two areas, your area and her area? You just say yes because we were mic'd
Oh, I'm
up.
sorry.
I'm
Yes.
I don't mean to be overly anal, but I want to create a good record. Is there a place where tenants may store their bikes?
Right now, that garage bay is used by one of the units, and
The garage bay that's going away?
no, that's going to stay. The one that you see in the drawing, that will be remain for the tenants of the first floor.
Okay, so
And-
they'll be able to store their bikes in the garage bay? Okay. And is there an outdoor outlet there in case they want to charge an electric vehicle?
We'll include that in the plan. So that should be on house power?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
As long as somebody can mosey up there in an electric vehicle and plug it in, you'll be satisfying the statute. Is the exterior lighting LED?
I noticed today that there isn't an LED bulb, but I'll change that.
Okay. And do you think they're over 20 watts? Well, you were here for the last one.
Right.
If they're over 20 watts, you're going to need to show them.
Right.
That's what I've got.
Yeah. The state subsidizes the prices of LED bulbs, so
99 cents.
you're crazy if you don't change them.
Yeah.
Are there any members of the public who came to speak to this application? Hearing no public comment, can I have a motion to approve application 2017-161 with conditions that require that there be accommodations for tenant bike storage, an outlet sufficient to charge electric vehicles, outdoor lighting be rebulbed with LEDs, and that the LEDs must be shielded if they are over 20 watts net.
So move. Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes 6-0. Mr. Daoud,
Thank you.
you'll have your package soon. This is really a great drawing. I've never seen a drawing
Yeah,
this
I
good
know.
in my entire DRB career.
You guys made my night.
Thank you.
If I could just get that site plan.
Brian's your neighbor on Highland Street, and I live on Washington, so.
So you can look forward to a lot of
Mr. Chairman,
violations.
Ian Keefe from the public. I just wanted to add, for anyone interested, I'm fascinated that the LED lights are sort of a requirement. Highly recommend if you get the 2700 color temperature, you get a much warmer light, that you're not beholden to those cold, harsh lights. So I'm fascinated that the requirements are to use LED, but nothing about temperature. Well, it's the,
Yeah, I know.
it changes the character.
I hate
What's the
those.
number of that again?
2700K gives you much closer to the tungsten the light. It's a much warmer light. It's just, I find it interesting they went for the LED, but you could put the harshest, brightest,
Right.
Oh, I agree.
you know?
The new LED streetlights, I am not happy
No,
with.
Oh, they're terrible.
So again, not to waste your time, but
No, this
No,
is very
thanks.
useful.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something? Can you get it at your local Brown and Roberts hardware store?
you probably can.
Yes.
Yes, you can, 2700K.
And those are, they're subsidized by Efficiency Vermont.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check those out.
Thank you very much.
DRB, sometimes you learn something. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Daoud. The last application is for 2017-9, Great, oh, they withdrew it, I'm sorry. Administrative matters and new business. Well, we have a new board member, Mr. Murchison.
Returning.
I didn't recognize you on the record because I was late and embarrassed, but welcome back. Mr. Murchison did 2 tours with the Planning Commission and 1 tour here and is highly qualified. If only we had someone joining the board to bring us up to the rank of 7 who was an expert at LED lighting. We would really have a full and complete board.
You want me to get up to the mic?
And I don't know if you know this, but because you joined the board, you are entitled to receive 1 gallon of Walpole Creamery ice cream from me personally,
Awesome.
which anyone else who joined, by the way, would also receive if they joined the board.
That's good.
I'm still waiting.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to come up to the microphone?
Yes, come up to the microphone, yeah.
So I'm Ian Keefe. I would shake everyone's hand. I'm getting over a cold, so I would forego that. But I had spoken with Mr. Valenti at least a couple times, saying I heard that they needed someone for this board. And I also spoke with Mr. Bannon here, just about sort of how this sort of works. I used the metaphor of, I guess, the zoning laws and the development review board are kind of like peanut butter and jelly. You kind of need the two. So I feel like I could contribute to your board. I figured the best thing for me to do is sit through a meeting and see if, I thought I could be part of it. And it's very interesting to observe you folks. I work for BCTV, really super part-time. I videotape Guilford Select Board meetings. I've filled in for your current cameraman at least once.
Our
And so-
trusty cameraman.
Yes, the excellent Frederick Noyes behind you. And I also work at the north end of town, part-time for Echo Point Books. I do some freelance video work as well. So that's my sort of professional life. My wife is the main breadwinner. She works for New Chapter. So that sort of gives you an idea where I'm coming from. I'm a local. Mr. Valenti said that I would learn a lot if I joined this board. You learn a lot about the town, and you learn a lot about the. Like I learned, I did not know about these outdoor outlets requirements, this bike storage requirements for tenants, and the whole thing with the shielding of the LEDs, that's sort of new to me.
What's unfortunate is we used to have Joe Bushy on this board.
Okay.
And he knew the story behind every single property
Wow,
that ever applied for any permit at any time,
wow.
including what children played there, what animals lived there, what structures were once there. So we used to get a really full briefing.
I don't go that far back. I remember when I believe it's called the New Asian Gourmet was Stockwell's General Store.
Oh, yeah, good sandwiches.
So that's
Better than Zyder's at the time.
and I remember when Zyder's, you could get your,
Yeah, good
you
meat
could,
counter.
if you went to academy school, you would leave there after school and you could go buy a penny candy and put your
Growing up
big
in
little
Vermont.
hands right in those. Yeah, so yeah, I would have some of that, but nowhere near approaching what Joe Bushy had.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
You guys generally meet the third Monday of the month. I believe
this
this was
was
a
a-
rescheduled
This
for
was
some
an
reason.
exception. Yeah.
Do you know when the December meeting would be scheduled for?
November's our next one.
Oh, yeah, we're still in October.
We're still barely, but
Yeah, November has Thanksgiving week. I don't know if that throws anything off.
It's still the 20th.
It would be the 20th. Would you want a letter of intent from me?
just,
There's an application that I'll send to you.
yeah, there's can you do it online?
Yeah.
Okay, I just thought it would be appropriate to sit in the public section, observe a meeting. I did speak with Mr. Banning, who gave me, freely of his time to sort of give me a quick overview. I believe there's a giant binder, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, you as a board would choose to appoint me.
We can't. The select board.
Oh, okay.
We
I
have,
was-
we have no authority on who's on this board.
Oh, okay, I apologize. I didn't know if it was one of those boards that appoints its own members.
But, I mean, if you're just walking through town and you say, yes, I will do DRB, I will come screeching up beside you in my vehicle and push an application into your face.
So would the most appropriate thing be is get that application in before the next select board meeting and be there in person so that they can hear who I am and,
The application actually asks for some of that information.
okay.
And then they do interviews if there's more than one applicant per
Okay.
position, which
There
we haven't had that good fortune.
Would it be appropriate to go to a select board meeting for that purpose? Would they want to?
I'm not sure, I'll ask Jan Anderson.
Yeah, she's familiar with me. I'm familiar with this building a lot. I've had a long history with DCTV.
When they interview, it's not at the public meeting.
Oh,
They
okay.
generally will have, like, I think when I did it, it was 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
same here, it was separate.
It's just a
Yeah,
little session.
Eric and I got interviewed the same time as George, right?
I don't even remember.
I
How's
think-
that?
I think the three of us all showed up
Wow.
to
I've
be
never
an
been
alternate.
They paid me because there was
You didn't
two,
have,
three people
he didn't
for
have
each
to be
spouse.
interviewed.
Yeah.
He was the only one.
But he's trustworthy.
Again, I don't mind, and I just, whatever's the most appropriate, but
That's the chair. I can't
You're-
imagine there is.
I can definitely say your chair, once I had raised interest, did not forget to bring it up each time he saw me, so.
Yeah.
What did you say, Tom?
I was asking our chair here, I can't imagine there's no.
But I don't want to make your meeting go any longer. It seems
Oh,
like-
no.
I imagine there is.
And don't forget the gallon of ice cream.
Well, he mentioned that each time. I know which flavor I was choosing.
We've been so short of members, it's like we're very diligent about making the meetings, I mean, because just to have enough people,
Yeah.
so it's very important to have the number of people, and you've lived in Brattleboro essentially your whole life. I think I know who your father is.
Yeah,
so,
I
so-
didn't disclose that, but
Wait, are you Mr. Keel's son?
my father taught at the BUHS for many, many years.
Oh, I was his student. I was in his class on September 11th. And I
Fascinating.
watched the second plane hit the Twin Towers in your dad's
That's
class.
fascinating.
Yes.
That's
I can beat that.
I knew math.
17 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, be
Um,
nice to have you.
Yeah, I was promised that I would learn a lot, and I'm willing to bring that attitude of one of learning, and it certainly seems like some of these ordinances are strict, but I suppose well-meaning in many cases. Yes, that was a fascinating.
What happened here is pretty rare, where you have a situation where somebody's without a permit,
Yeah,
with a functioning business,
yeah.
And we have to just say you can't have a permit. I can't actually remember that happening in the last 5 years. So if you think that this is routine, let me tell you, it's not.
Well, again, it perhaps it's appropriate for me to see something that isn't routine, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of variety. I mean, we've had graveyard situations and all sorts of funky stuff in my limited time, but,
Okay.
you know, that's part of the harder portion of this job, is when the law it appears clear, we've got to do stuff that affects people's lives.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to make sure I knew what I was getting into. There's a,
And you will learn a lot.
okay.
I came on about 4 months after I moved to Brattleboro. I came on as an alternate
Okay.
and to fill out a term.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot about the city. I always drive around and look at the places on the, if I don't know where they are.
I lived here my whole life and I learned a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
there's streets I didn't know existed.
Oh, it's-
I know, I go,
It's funny.
you have to go online and say, where is that?
I guess the question, I was curious on that requirement for the person, Mr. Remy-Powers on Spruce Street. Is that literally a tree street requirement to?
Street trees.
It is now, yeah.
Yeah.
Street trees.
But that doesn't, we refer to that area as the tree streets. You know,
Oh, no, it's
Spruce
it's
and
almost
and
everywhere.
cedar and.
We just-
When I was a kid,
had-
that street actually did have an elm crown right over the whole street when I was a
Okay.
little kid.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, and everyone burned their leaves in the street too, so
It's like
times have changed.
some comedians said we name all of our streets after what we cut
But
down.
it just- to give you some perspective, the last application we dealt with street trees was the McDonald's, and we had they have street trees too.
Oh, is it?
So it's,
Okay.
I think it's every zone, isn't it?
Everything except the industrial district,
Everything except
Okay.
industrial.
Okay.
Is it one every 14 feet or something?
one every 50, but then
15?
the front yard stuff is one every 5.
Right. There's a formula.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems quite
We
clear.
always just tell people to consult with Brian.
Again, I don't want to take up more time, but again, I just want to introduce myself.
Thanks.
Good.
Well, we appreciate it. We've been short, and it's uncomfortable too, because if it's 5 people and
Yeah.
you are having second thoughts about an application,
Yeah.
I mean, it's much better with 7 people. I mean, that's how this board is supposed to work in terms of plurality.
And then in the hopes, or, you know, the hope that I would be appointed by the select board, it would still sort of be incumbent on all of us to try and find a couple alternates to sort of fill in when there are
I'm
sicknesses or absences.
As you know, I'm enthusiastic
Okay.
about finding new members.
Well, when you have conflicts, that's, you know.
Somebody would have to recuse themselves.
If they don't appoint you, I'm gonna try to get my neighbors to secede from the town and start a revolution, so.
And to just to be clear, like, to use you as an example, Mr. Chair, you're a lawyer. If, let's say, a property developer had hired your law firm,
Oh,
would that put you right out of the recusal of this?
I
Yeah.
mean, that's an example of like a, bright
Yeah.
flashing light conflict.
Okay.
If I have current clients who are neighbors,
Yeah.
it hasn't happened strangely enough.
I mean, I work for an
That's some
employer who
friends.
rents from the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, so I'm just,
Yeah.
I don't see that as creating a conflict in a situation where, let's say, BDCC wanted to do something. I would just be explicit about that relationship,
No, I'd
because
say,
it's too indirect.
if there's anyone who's close enough to you that is adjacent to the property,
Okay.
where if they said, hey, Ian, I really wish you would deny this application, if they're close enough where you would actually consider doing that, you probably have a conflict.
And you should recuse yourself. Okay. All right.
And ice cream.
No, you shout at maple cream,
There are some people, not myself, but who can't eat dairy, so.
we'll get you sorbet.
All right, I see.
The offer is for sorbet, if there are
Okay.
any lactose intolerant people out of there with an interest in land use.
I'd love to sit down now.
Okay.
Adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0, meeting's adjourned, 8:50.
So I put LEDs in my house. I put